think so. Blistering hot in here.
That's because Tim's brought a lot of hot air with him.
In our seat.
Can't have fire without it.
There's a man. We got a full house.
Not present. Sideline just for you. Hello, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Public Works Committee of the City of Rapid City for Tuesday, December 11th at 12:30 p.m. The first order of business is roll call and determination of quorum. Stacy? Here?
Here.
All are present. That's great. Next up is the adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Nordstrom, second by Modrick. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is adopted. Now it's time for general public comment, a time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue not limited to items on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I have no forms that have been submitted. Is anyone here for general public comment? Doesn't appear to be. Okay. General public is now closed. We go on to consent items 1 through 10. Public comment is open. I have no slips for that either. And so public comment on items 1 through 10 is closed. Now we'll open it up to the committee and see if they'd like anything for removal from the consent items. Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 10, please.
Let me get there. Item 10. Okay. That's the only light I see. Okay, Chair is going to pull item 6 and also item 9. Okay, thank you. We'll get a little background on it today. Okay, I need a motion to approve the agenda with the exception of 6,
So moved.
9, and 10.
Second.
6, 9,
Move.
and 10.
Motion by Modrick, second by Nordstrom. All in favor?
Aye.
And the agenda is passed with, the consent is passed with those items removed. We go to item number 6, authorize staff to apply for the 2019 Bridge Improvement Grant BIG funds for preservation and repair work for the East Main Street North Bridge and accept funds if awarded. And I pulled this item, so I'd like to direct some questions to Dale Tech if the committee has no objections. So Dale, why don't you talk about this a little bit, because I kind of like how we're getting this funded through the big grants and those kinds of funding for these repairs.
Yeah, this is an excellent program. This is relatively new. The state had come up with some additional funding availability for bridges. It's grant related, so it's competitive. The City of Rapid City has been fortunate enough. I believe we've received 3 grants thus far. Certainly we have enough bridges in our inventory that need a little bit of work that we'll be able to apply every year. There is a rating process that on the state level that they go through to determine who is eligible to receive the grants, what bridges are a priority, so on and so forth. One thing I'd like to throw out is with this type of program that the state developed, municipalities are allowed to apply for these grants. It's also aimed at counties. A number of years ago when they put this together, counties that had an existing wheel tax are eligible to apply for big grants, and counties that do not are not eligible. So they recognize that municipalities don't have the ability to implement a wheel tax, so that's why municipalities are eligible for this type of funding.
Well, as a person that's worked in grants a lot, I don't believe it's fortunate. I think it's good, hard work that gets those things done. I see Amanda has retracted her light, so I see no more lights from anyone.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Nordstrom,
Second?
second by Modrook. All in favor?
Aye.
And it passes. Go on to item number 9. Once again, I pulled this one. Authorize Parks and Recreation Department to harvest 250 deer for the 2018-2019 season. This is a sensitive topic, and I'd like to ask, you're already there. He knows. So maybe you could help us understand where we arrived at this number and how this is to be carried out.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. Every October, our city Parks and Recreation staff, with the help of South Dakota Game Fish and Parks, conducts a deer trend survey, whereby we go out to the different areas throughout town that have populations of deer that come through there. We do an actual survey to gauge the numbers of deer, and then we get this information to the Fish and Game Department, and based on that survey, they give us a recommended number that they would like to see harvested in order to maintain a healthy herd.
And I know that if we're doing 100 more deer than we did last year, of course, we incur some expenses with that. It takes more time by the people that are the hunters and the people that do this type of work and getting the deer ready to be distributed through Feeding South Dakota. So I heard we had some help with those expenses this year.
Yes, this year, actually this year we had budgeted for the 150 deer, similar to what we harvested last year. And then obviously with an additional 100 deer being requested to be included in this, there were additional costs. We've gotten commitments from the Black Hills Sportsman Association as well as the South Dakota Sportsmen Against Hunger to fund the processing of the additional 100 deer.
Well, thank you for that. You know, I don't, it's a sensitive topic. And as much as a lot of us don't like to see these beautiful animals harvested, so to speak, at least there's a good side to this, and it helps feed the hungry. So thank you for your work on that. Okay, so I need a motion?
Amanda.
Oh, Amanda, excuse me, Amanda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I can just ask a follow-up question?
Of course.
Jeff, so, and I may have misunderstood, but is the contribution or the partnership with the two organizations you mentioned, that's not just to process the additional deer. They're going to process all 250 of them, but are they also contributing some funds to offset the cost of the actual time that it takes to go out and have our staff?
They will, yes.
Harvest them?
Yes, they've pledged a combination of $9,000 between the two. That will cover not only the cost of the processing of that additional 100, but will also help defray some of the additional operating costs for the operation.
And thank you. And that's what I thought I understood, and so the only reason I'm bringing it up is so many times it's government that is doling out the cash. It's nice to see members of our community contributing back when they know that the meat is going to go to a worthy cause.
These two groups have always stepped up and assisted in this.
And Jeff, would you mind also, because I know a lot of times Alderwoman Modrook is very concerned with public safety, would you mind explaining, just briefly, because we don't want to get into any type of gory details or anything, but this meat is also inspected every single time before it is actually distributed as well?
That is correct, yes. When the deer are taken to the processing company, the South Dakota Game Fish and Parks will conduct an examination to make sure that they are not affected with the chronic wasting disease that we've heard so much about in the hills.
So thank you. Thank you,
bet.
Madam Chair, for indulging my questions.
Oh, no problem. Those are great questions. And now on to Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilwoman Scott, for taking the first question off my list. What I want to ask is, with the Feeding South Dakota program, Jeff, and maybe you do or don't know, but how many will be fed off of a 250 harvest, and then how is that distributed for those that really need that food?
I do not have that information, but all of the meat is turned into ground meet, and then that's all given to the Feeding South Dakota. They have a method of distribution that we're really not part of. So the distribution is handled by that group.
So it could be statewide or even national, or does it get to stay
No,
here
it
locally?
stays here locally.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
great questions. John Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Jeff. You're doing a great job at Park and Rec. The one question that I'm going to have asked is, what are we budgeted this year for this, and what were we budgeted last year for this?
Well, we budgeted the same amount this year as we did last year. The total cost, roughly, including personnel costs and all of the bait, the ammunition, everything like that, it's around $30,000. That's our kind of a ballpark figure. Depends on how long the crew is out there, how quickly they can get through the numbers that they need to harvest, and all of that sort of thing. But
And that's for 250 deer, the
correct.
30,000.
That'll be for 250.
What was last year budgeted?
Well, it was the same amount. We took 150, but this year, actually, it was a little less than that. But this year, with the additional
Okay.
donation
That's
from these
going to
troopers.
be the question that I'm having asked, because 250 compared to 150 is a lot.
Yep.
I do agree that we need to do it. I've never seen so many deer in Rapid City in my life. So I had 7 of them in my driveway last night. So, you know, and that's pretty uncommon. But around my office, we always have them every morning, and I see them on Haynes Avenue constantly. I mean, they're all over town now. So
They sure are.
I am sure your numbers are right. We definitely need to take more this year. So thank you, Jeff.
You bet.
All right, and with that, we are at the end of our questions, and do we have a motion? Okay. Motion to approve by Nordstrom? Second by Amanda Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion passes. Number 10, authorize staff to sign facility lease agreement with NA3HL Hockey League for use of the Roosevelt Park Ice Arena. And Richie Nordstrom. No, it wasn't easy for me to say.
Mr. Bigler, could you give us a little background on this facility lease agreement that we're looking towards doing? Because I've got some follow-up questions on that.
Yes, this is a facility lease acknowledgement that is before you this evening. There's a group that wants to bring a Tier 3 hockey, junior hockey league team to Rapid City. This item that's before you here is necessary for the league to consider the move to Rapid City. And what this does is it illustrates to them that if approved for the team to come to Rapid City, there is a facility for them to play and to practice. So that's what this first thing is. So before the league as a whole will authorize the relocation of this team, which is currently based in Niagara Falls, New York, they need to have this acknowledgement to indicate that there is a location for this group to play.
So the first step is to have a facility.
Correct.
And then the second step is enter into negotiations with them?
That's correct, yes. If this group gets the approval from the league to relocate this team, then we would enter into a negotiation for a contract to use the facility.
The only concern, Mr. Bigler, is that I've come up with is that people from the ice skating community have been looking for another sheet of ice somewhere within the city of Rapid City. The issue specifically to Roosevelt Park is that the I guess the open skating is in competition with the ice hockey folks currently. Do we understand that?
I don't believe that's the case. No, I think there's sufficient time for the hockey and the figure skating clubs,
Yes.
as well as the open skate to the public. What the good thing about this group is that they would be renting ice time from the city at those times that are currently being underutilized at the facility.
Thank you. I think that's important to stress to the figure skating groups because that seems to be annual request that they need some more ice time. And if that is explained to them and they totally understand how that works, so that the lesser amount of interference with the hockey teams coming in and using it, I think the better they'll understand that. So in that continuing education and communication on that part of it. But anyway, the bottom line is I still believe that the city of Rapid City still needs another sheet of ice someplace. And hopefully we'll be able to find somebody to help us out in coming up with another sheet, because all of the ice that I've seen so far is heavily used and there's somewhat of a waiting list. So thank you.
Okay.
Chair recognizes Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I ask some follow-up questions, please?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So Jeff, I think there's some confusion on this thing, because when I read it, the way I interpreted it is that this is, as you described, a Tier 3 team. So so the confusion is, I've had other people tell me, no, this is a league coming into Rapid City that wants to start a league for our local 16 to 18-year-olds that currently don't have a league. And that didn't make any sense to me. This is like a semi-professional type league that's coming, that wants to come to Rapid City?
Yes, this is a junior hockey league, so it would have youth from the ages of 16 through 20 that would be participating in this. So it's a segment of the hockey playing community that's not already being served by a hockey league, whether it be the Rushmore Thunder. We have some recreational hockey that goes on at our facility now, which is just a recreation program hockey. And then the hope is that the individuals who participate in these junior leagues will be scouted by colleges or eventually by the pros. But this is not going to be only for Rapid City players from all over that want to improve their skills and perhaps be noticed by college recruits or something like that can come and join these teams.
So I guess that leads me to one of my questions, which is, we sit here in the middle of the United States of America and kind of like the northern tundra area for some part of the year, and I'm sure that's appealing to hockey players. Why does this league want to come to Rapid City, South Dakota?
Well, the group that wants to bring this team feels that there is certainly a market for another team. This would be part of the Frontier division, I guess, of this league. And some of the other teams that are part of this division are Bozeman, Butte, Gillette, Great Falls, Helena, Missoula. So this team would play a lot of those teams in the Montana-Wyoming area.
So this Tier 3, is it kind of set up like our professional, our professional team Rush, where they've got a certain league in which they play and the teams can move in and out of those different leagues?
Oh, boy, you got me there. I don't have an answer for that, but I believe that the players that are part of this Tier 3, they usually stay part of these teams with which they're affiliated.
Okay, if it includes the age limit of 16-year-olds to 20-year-olds,
right,
if I understood what you said, and you said that this, when they come, I'm going to say when, being, positive,
right.
You said that they were going to rent time that is off time. If there's 16-year-olds on this, what do you consider off time? Because if I first heard it, I would have thought if it was, over-age, school-age children out of high school, then they may be able to practice like during the day when our kids and everybody else aren't there. But if you're including 16-year-olds, I'm having a hard time reconciling what that off time would look like.
Well, we don't have the details hammered out for what the practice time would be, but most likely it would be early evenings. But there are times of the day that we currently are not using the facility to its maximum potential. So these are times that would be available for practice. Their games, I believe, are scheduled either on Friday or Saturday evenings. So yeah, I think the 16-year-old category is probably those close to graduating seniors that turn 16 at some time and then will graduate that year.
Okay, and then I think just one last question, just to clarify this for not only us council members, but also the public too, before we make a recommendation to Monday night's city council meeting. When this opens up or they move here, and it's got the 16 to 20-year-olds, and they're going to play their games, I believe either in the newspaper or you may have said it, I can't remember where I heard it, that the game, this league knows that we currently have rush hockey in town, and so the games will be coordinated not to play in competing nights?
That is what we have been told, yes. And they also want to work with the Rush to have some of the professional Rush players come to this level and do instructional classes and things like that. So they very much want to be part of the hockey community here in Rapid City and work with the Rush and with the other existing hockey groups.
Okay, and so what are the next steps? This is just an agreement saying, yes, we have an arena or a rink. If you're interested in coming here, what would be the next steps?
Well, it's my understanding that there is a meeting of this league coming up within the next couple of weeks, and at that time they will take a vote on whether or not this group that wants to bring the team here will be able to relocate to this area. So that's the next step. If that's approved, then we'll begin to enter into some sort of contract negotiations.
So then the timeline for actually having this league, if they were to move up and running, would be like next fall?
Yeah, it might be, I mean, we'd be in negotiations sooner than that, but yes, they would probably be starting later on in the
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, for indulging my question.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you, Amanda. Good questions, and I have just a couple more. Just for clarity, these games are ticketed events, and so they generate some funds for us
Yes,
here, right?
that is correct.
And I don't see any problem with actually bringing in people and, bringing them in from Helena and other areas to come to Rapid City. That's all part of the economic development. And as far as the 16 to 20-year-olds, I think they might generate a little bit more excitement towards our Rush games, maybe give them that little boost that they might need about now. So, getting people interested in the sport is always very welcome. Is this something that you started, or did they call us, or how did that happen?
No, they contacted us probably a year or so ago, and they were just kind of feeling out the area to see if this is what they would like to do, and we've been in contact with them a couple of times, and this is where we are today.
Well, I think it's terrific, and I think we're the perfect city for them, so thank you, Jeff.
You bet.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Moved by Nordstrom, second by Modrick. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion passes. Just one more comment on these types of things, just reminding us that we are a deliberative body. To ask all these questions is really important at this point, so we don't have to rehash this at the City Council every time. We can go through these things and really figure out how we feel about it and get the time of the people that are involved in making these decisions. So thank you, everyone, for your questions. Now we move on to the non-consent items. The public comment is opened on non-consent. Item number 11, there's only one, and now it's closed. And items from the Community Development Department. Presentation from Community Development on department programs and development updates. Information item, no action required, and Ken Young is up. Oh, here. Is it good enough?
Okay, Council, thank you for allowing us to take this opportunity to make a brief presentation of things that are happening in Community Development Department, and giving this opportunity here to introduce our new newsletter format. We have had a shorter newsletter that we've used since I've been here, but we wanted to make this a little bit more informative and also something that looks down the road a little bit, thus the name of the newsletter, but giving you and the public an idea of what community development is working on, what you can expect to see in the next few months, and we hope to do this on a bi-weekly basis as far as updating the newsletter itself, which will be posted online and made available through Facebook. But with that, I'm going to jump right into it. I have invited some of my staff members to join me today to help in this presentation. Each one will take perhaps 1 to 3 minutes, so it won't be a lengthy presentation. We'll just go ahead and start with that. So the divisions that we have in the Community Development Department include current planning, which Vicki Fisher is the manager, long-range planning, Patsy Horton manager, building services, Brad Solon manager, CDBG program, Barb Garcia manager, and code enforcement, Matt Ozarek manager. So I'm going to, with that, I'm not going to do a whole lot of talking myself. I'm going to turn the time over, starting with Vicki, who will talk to us about her division in current planning and some of the things that are going on there. And this really is, you can follow along with the newsletter, pretty much same thing, but this will give you an idea of a highlighted version. Oh, yeah, sorry, we're starting with John, that's right. Go ahead and give your full name.
John Green with the current planning division. The site plan before you is a building permit application that was submitted this past November for a Fleet Farm superstore. So Fleet Farm is a retail and home supply superstore. So all totaled for this site, about 210,000 square feet of retail development was proposed. So this property is about 37 acres in size and is directly east of the Hilton Garden Inn on East Mall Drive, north of Interstate 90. So as part of this application, we've reviewed a convenience store, car wash, and then the retail store itself will be coming forward as part of a building permit application. The second site plan that we wanted to highlight that we've looked at is an initial plan development overlay that was submitted by Black Hills Works Foundation for the property at 803 Susan Drive. That's the current location of the brain injury rehabilitation facility. And this initial plan development was for 9 individual dwelling units to serve as transitional housing for patients that are undergoing treatment at the rehabilitation center as they transition out. We expect that these developments in the dwellings will come as phases. So over the next several years, as the clientele expands for the rehab center, these dwelling units would be expanded then one at a time individually. And then finally, there's the proposed Dakota Market Square, which is the property at the Kmart location on East North Street. So this was also an initial plan development. So as part of this project, there's about 7,000 square feet of new retail development proposed, in addition to quite a bit of landscaping that would be added to the site and some facade improvements. So kind of the goal is to improve retail, add new retail development, so forth on the property. And if you guys are familiar with the existing Kmart property, it's in desperate need of a lot more updates with the landscaping to beautify that property. So those are just 3 of some of the more unique and larger scale projects that we've reviewed in the past several months. And with that, I'll turn it over to Fletcher, I believe.
Just in case you have questions or comments, whatever, feel free to interrupt us through the presentation.
Fletcher Laycock, I'm Planner 3 in current planning division. One of the goals of the comprehensive plan is to streamline processes and improve efficiency. So what staff is working on and continues to work on are ordinance amendments to revise the zoning ordinance to improve clarity and to remove conflicting language throughout the ordinance. On Legal and Finance tomorrow, you'll see 2 ordinance amendments coming forward regarding townhomes and oversized garages. What we have here is a list of projects we look forward to doing in order to keep up with future development. But in January, there are planned work sessions on accessory dwelling units and vacation home rentals. We're having a staff meeting later this week regarding the office commercial district and making some changes. And then right on the screen we see multiple structures in high density, which would be revising the definition of what a principal structure is. And it's all to help ensure that future development, that development processes are streamlined and that there's more efficiency in what we do. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Vicki Fisher,
No,
Kern
go ahead.
County.
Richie has some questions for Fletcher, so we'll do it as they are at the podium.
Fletcher, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but we're going through these ordinance amendments. Is there an opportunity that we can get a chance to do a working session or some kind of a format to allow us to have some time to review these, to take a look at them initially, and then have some conversations about them, basically to get to the answer of why we need to do this? Ken?
Let me go ahead and answer that. So we have, for accessory dwelling units, as you're aware, we've scheduled a work session in February for that particular one. That is a big issue that we felt there was a need for. Not sure if you want to see us do a separate meeting work session on every single one that we bring forward. However, one thing that I would recommend that we could do is bring it forward here in this setting, or excuse me, at Legal and Finance, I suppose, would be the appropriate place. But we could schedule it for Public Works as well if you would like to have that review and do it as a preliminary review, not that it will at that point be going forward to City Council, but just as a presentation, or if you will, a work session that we can talk about it a little bit. And we can do it in that type of a format, take advantage of this situation here if you think that's a good way to do it.
I would be in favor of it. The more information I can gather at the preliminary stage, I think is most helpful. So
Okay.
if that can be worked out, I would appreciate it. Thank
So
you.
I think what we'll do is we'll plan on 2 sessions of coming before, well, the first one would be both Public Works and Legal and Finance, so that we can catch all of the council members in a preliminary working type of a conversation. And then we'll do, once we're ready, we'll go forward again for preparing for the City Council review.
Mr. Young, just a quick follow-up. What I'm looking for is getting to the why. Why do we need to change these, and getting into these amendments
Sure.
as to why. So
Yeah, that's good.
For me, that's the bottom line.
It is. That's where we need to start.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Madam Chair, if I might expand on that, one of the things that Ken introduced to our department and to the public is Coffee with Planners. And every one of the ordinance amendments that we've brought up in the recent year, we've started there. We got input from the public. And in those sessions, we do explain what isn't working, what is working, and how we can make it better. And then we've gotten some great input as to where we see the public wanting to see changes. And for the most part, that's how those ordinance amendments get initiated. So stay tuned. We'll keep inviting you. Hopefully more of you will attend those. But I do think that Ken's idea of bringing them to the committees, having that one-on-one discussion, we love the atmosphere of this meeting compared to the council meetings. So thank you for giving us this opportunity today. And with
Vicki,
that, I am
I'd
Vicki
like to
Fisher.
Thank you for starting the Coffee with Planners. I've not made one yet, I'm sorry, but you know, it certainly is a great way to invest in the public and get their input before it comes before us. So thank you for that effort. Kudos to your department.
Thank you. So many of the projects that we have come in are for large acre parcels. And with that, it's required that you bring in a master plan that shows the layout of the development as a whole. And we're looking at the connectivity for utilities, streets, to ensure that the land use is compatible with each other and what's existing. And we've had some exciting ones come in. The one on the screen right now is called Shepherd Hills. It is located between East North Street, adjacent to Menards, all the way down to Highway 44, adjacent to Western Dakota Tech. As a part of this 700-acre development, we see an industrial node. Let's see if I can kind of point a couple of these out. And this is the industrial park. Adjacent to it is a commercial corridor. And then everything within this area is also identified as commercial. Because of its proximity to Western Dakota Tech, there is a need and a desire by this developer to work with Western Dakota Tech to provide some housing for the students in the area. We have been visiting with them about maybe bringing in something called tiny homes. We have all seen those on HGTV, but to date we've not seen them introduced into our community. And we're actually looking at creating zoning ordinances that may be specific to this unique lifestyle. As a part of this, you at Council have already looked at some of the platting within what's known as Diamond Ridge, and one of the first proposals is for a multifamily development that will also include your traditional single-family homes, some townhomes. As a part of this, there will be affordable housing, workforce housing, and then that marriage back in with more of your conventional housing. As we've seen in our comprehensive plan, trying to integrate all types of housing in the same area creates that sense of community where we all live together instead of segregating homes based on income levels. It's really marrying everyone into the same neighborhood and in such close proximity to existing and proposed commercial and industrial uses. It acknowledges that stay, live, work environment, also encouraged by our comprehensive plan. This is certainly going to be something that is going to change the street networking in this area. As you know now, you have to go out to Campbell Street, go north, come down east-north, and as we see these road connections coming forward, it's going to improve the traffic patterns for this area, not only for the new development, but for existing development. So we're excited to see this one come forward. The industrial component, that final plat has already been recorded. We anticipate some of the residential will come in next, and as we all are aware, there's a large medical facility that may be located within this area. There's been discussion of providing some veterans medical options and housing for veterans as well. So it's going to be a nice blend and improvement for this area. The next one is Freeland Ranch, and if you travel with me on La Crosse Street, before, as you would turn to go to the mall on Disk Drive, keep going straight, and you kind of merge into East Mall Drive, and at that terminus of where La Crosse Street is directly north, this is 128 acres that is going to be primarily a residential development with a commercial component in this area right here. More neighborhood and office commercial. You have seen some discussion with Barb's group through the CDBG on the one lot at the corner for affordable apartment development. You have seen the first phase of that through the platting. I anticipate in the near future you'll see the Planning Commission will see the plan development, and then that will ultimately be final platted and hopefully a building permit issued soon for it. This again is a desire to create approximately 360 affordable and workforce housing units in an area of the community that is also lacking in some service needs, which is where the commercial component comes in. There may be some office and medical offices there to meet the needs of the neighborhood. It's going to also provide some utility, connectivity, and street connections to the north and to the west of this site that are needed for the area as a whole. This is one that's also very exciting. It will be phased. Obviously, the early phases will come closer to East Mall Drive, but we're looking forward to seeing what the developer has in store for 2019 on bringing this project forward. The last one I wanted to show you is one known as Buffalo Crossing West. If any of you have driven out towards Catron Boulevard and Mount Rushmore Road, you got to see a hill come down. And as a part of this, we've got 30 acres of commercial development that we see coming forward. The anchor for this will be a medical facility, but there will also be other tourist-related services, hotels, restaurants, coffee shops. I understand there may be a veterinary clinic coming to the site. We do have other commercial components to the area, but there is a large number of rooftops, apartments and single-family and townhomes existing. And again, this allows for more employment opportunities for those that want to live within the same area that they work. And we're excited to see this corner come forward with additional commercial development. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kelly.
Oh, excuse me. I was just listening. Richie Nordstrom has some questions.
Vicki, if I can ask a question on that intersection up there, I'm hearing rumors, and I don't know if it's official yet, But on that intersection, there's some plan changes coming for that intersection. How will that affect Buffalo Crossing West? And what is currently established?
So we did meet with the state, because as you know, Mount Rushmore Road is a state highway, and this leg of Catron Boulevard is a city street. So we did meet with them in the early concept of this master plan. The developer was in the room with us, and the service road, as we know it today, will go away. And as a result of that, the access points and the connectivity to the north and where it ties in with Promise Road has all been closely coordinated with what the state anticipates will happen at this intersection. Now, as far as locking down what that intersection will look like, they're down to, and Kip, correct me if I'm wrong, they have a preferred plan, but there's still three on the two? There's still two that they're reviewing. So that's not been locked down, but what we do know is that the access points and the elimination of this leg of the service road fits into either one of those plans. Good question.
Thank you. Do you have an estimated time when that referred to as lockdown? Do you have a projection of when that will take place?
And again, this is a state project. I don't believe that they've identified the exact point, but it is in, is it the 5 or, do you know what year plan it's in? After 5, I'm hearing. But again, it's a state project, one that...
Understand. The reason I'm asking these questions is how does that affect the current property, if there's any buybacks or anything that has to take place just to make accommodations for the new reconstruction of that intersection. So I'm just concerned about the property buybacks or how that system works.
And that's exactly why we have facilitated these master plans through the review of the state,
Yes.
is to ensure that we can eliminate any improvements that we allow that the state may have to purchase back. So even though there may be additional right-of-way, as we saw the most recent plat come forward, they've been negotiating with the state already to create H-lots for that future extension. So I think we're working well as a team, and there's some give and take on both sides of this. But at the end of the day, it's for the benefit of the developer as well as the city and the state that we all collaborate together to ensure that we provide the safest trafficking patterns possible.
Thank you. And it sounds like some of the things that I've been advocating, the P3s, public-private partnerships. So that sounds like the direction this is headed.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Kelly Brennan, Long Range Planning. So we are also working on a comprehensive plan amendment. Plan Rapid City, which is our comp plan, was adopted in 2014. Since then, we've come across some discrepancies between the zoning districts and the future land use categories. So we're working on kind of fixing those issues. There's also some specific locations inside the city that were either given a conflicting land use category in the beginning, or they've changed or grown in a way that is different than what we originally thought, so we're making those changes as well. These are just a couple of the changes that are actually being proposed. The one image you see on Creek Drive, that was originally designated as low-density neighborhood, which is not really an appropriate future land use for that area. The zoning districts that are in there were Gen Ag, flood hazard, and light industrial, so this was a much better future land use designation. Our goal on this is to have a comprehensive plan that can benefit the developers with a little more streamlined process and also to assist Planning Commission.
I'm seeing no lights, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll probably be seeing the draft versions of this coming forward, I would say, in March.
Good afternoon, Kip Harrington, Long Range Planning. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about transportation planning and what we have going on currently. So the first one we'll talk about is the analysis of the Sheridan Lake Road corridor. And this is an analysis of the corridor that extends from Alberta Drive on the south, near Countryside, up through Corral Drive on the north. There's a lot of school traffic, a lot of congestion in this area in the mornings. We hear a lot of issues from that with the commuters. And so this study is taking a look to see what kind of improvements can be done to Sheridan Lake Road, or what can be done to create alternate pathways through that area to alleviate some of that traffic. We're currently working on this with the Public Works Department, and we anticipate this study to be done early next year with some recommendations, and then a tentative construction project scheduled for 2021, again, depending on what the outcome of the study is. Number 2 is the East Rapid City Corridor and Traffic Analysis Study. Vicki just talked to you about the Shepherd Hills development. This is in that area. This has a lot to do with Omaha Street, the Campbell Street corridor, and the East-North Street corridor between Campbell Street and the interstate. A lot of this has to do with the continuing development of Rushmore Crossing and the surrounding area. There's some traffic pattern issues up there, some turning lane issues. So this study is taking a look at what can be done in those intersections, what can be done along those road segments to help improve that, and will those alternate traffic connections, when built, what kind of relief will they provide, and what kind of profile will those take? And that study is scheduled to be completed early next year as well. We're also working on the Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan, and that details all of our nonprofit transit providers and tries to sync them up to identify any gaps in coverage and allow them to work better together. And that project, again, is scheduled to be done early next year. And Vicki talked a little bit about the US 16 and Katrin Boulevard intersection. That is also part of a corridor study that State Department of Transportation is kicking off right now. They'll look at the US 16 corridor from the Keystone Y on the south all the way up to Cathedral Drive on the north, with a special focus on the Neck Yoke Road intersection near Reptile Gardens. If you've been through there, there's a lot of accesses. It's very confusing for tourists, not very safe. They'll take a look at some options to improve that, and a big focus on that US Highway 16 Mount Rushmore Road, Katrin Boulevard intersection. Like Vicki said, there are 2 identified projects for that, 2 different types of interchanges, and this will hammer down which one of those will be constructed. And that's tentatively scheduled right now, I think either 2024 or 2026 for that construction.
Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Again, thank you, Madam Chair. Kip, can you address any of the public transit issues or planning or coordinated projects that are coming up in the near future?
Well, this again talks about our nonprofit transit providers, which is like Black Hills Works or the Club for Boys or people like that that provide services to just specifically their clients, and they're eligible for some funding, and so that's why the reason for this plan is. They do coordinate with Rapid Transit somewhat, but we do not have a whole lot of input into the operations of Rapid Transit.
Primarily, I'm seeing that a greater need for public transportation is starting to appear on the horizon, so that's the reason for the question is, do you see of any MPO projects coming forward that can address public transit?
Well, our new Metropolitan Transportation Plan will be coming out in 2020. We're actually going to release the RFP early next year to start that process, and that will have a transit component in it, so we will address transit through that to some extent. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yield.
Thank you. No other lights, so thank you for your presentation. Sounds like we're on a good road. Anyway,
Good afternoon, Sarah Hansel with Long Range Planning Division. I have a few updates for some projects coming out of the Historic Preservation Commission and downtown generally. First, to start with the Historic Preservation Commission, they are focusing on their education and outreach efforts using the grant funding that they receive from the state. Last year, they created a walking tour of downtown architecture, which is a pretty great project. This year, they are, among other things, developing a brochure to mail to all property owners of historic property to give them an overview, kind of just the basics on how historic review is conducted and how to connect them with more information. We're looking forward to doing this project because it's a lot of times we hear that people don't realize they're in a historic district or they're not sure what the processes are. So this this will be a good tool to help get some of that information out there, and it will also be posted online. We are also working on implementing findings from the comprehensive plan, the downtown parking study to upgrade our parking meters downtown. As you know, we conducted a pilot project this summer to test out some different technology, kind of get a sense for what's out there and how companies are working with cities. We are doing a close analysis of that, and we're still kind of in the midst of it, but look forward to bringing forward some recommendations for how to move forward in the next 1 to 2 months or so. So stay tuned for that. We've also been engaged in a project this year looking at the future of 6th Street and the connection between the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center and the greater downtown area towards the Performance Arts Center. We're sort of referring to this as the 6th Street Promenade, and over the last year we've been hosting a variety of community conversations and open houses and outreach of various sorts to gather some community feedback on what is the future of this corridor, particularly the pedestrian crossing over Omaha Street. That's looked a lot of different ways over the years, but there's a lot of room for improvement to improve the connection to downtown. So we're looking at a concept of essentially a pedestrian crossing over Omaha that would extend Memorial Park at grade over Omaha and divert traffic underneath. It's a very innovative project. There's a lot more planning and research that needs to go into it. So right now we are summarizing our year of public outreach and comments, and we will bring that forward to you sometime after the new year with what some of those ideas are and how we might move forward, looking at grant funding and other resources that may be available.
Journey on that list, on the map.
I think and that is all I have.
Are we done? Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Good afternoon, I'm Brad from Building Permits. I'm going to talk a little bit about the building permit report analysis. So far, as you've probably seen in the news, that as of the end of November, we were the second best year ever for valuation for permitted construction. So in 38 permits this year were more than $1 million, which attributed to $207 million in permitted construction. So today we're at 3,648 this afternoon, so 3,610 of those permits that we issued today attributed for less than $100 million in permitted construction. The other thing I have to talk about is the building code adoption overview. The Rapid City Building Board's been working hard since spring in April and May to update the city's building codes from the 2012 editions of the international codes to the 2018 editions. Today at Building Board this morning, the board voted to recommend approval of those ordinances and present those at City Council. So you will be seeing those soon at one of these next meetings. And so one of the things on those the building codes that are coming before you, the energy code sections of those are going to be deleted again. There's some debate about those sections that the energy code requirements are too stringent for Rapid City, and so those have been deleted. And if you did see these, the building codes probably wouldn't go into effect until probably the end of January. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Brad. No lights? Barb.
Barbara Garcia, Manager of Community Development. As you know, community development block grant funds are focused on three main types of activities. Development of decent housing, and that ranges everywhere from emergency shelters up to nursing homes, all the housing in between. Development of suitable living environments. What that includes is public facilities and public services that help people be stable in their households and family life and in the community. And the expansion of economic opportunities for low and moderate income people through job creation, job training programs, new businesses that come in the higher low income. We receive on average around $460,000 a year. This year in particular is more than we've had in quite a long time. We're getting $491,989 this year. But we also get program income, and that is not guaranteed. We never know how much we're going to get in a year. The last 2 years we've been fortunate enough to get in about $220,000 in program income that comes back in that we can reallocate. And so right now we're just getting ready to review our 2019 applications, our reallocation of about $220,000, and our human services. So next week that committee will meet to decide how we'll fund in 2019. The types of projects we've done in the past is YFS, Canyon Lake. Most of our projects are rehab on the buildings for energy efficiency, security, handicap accessibility, sometimes for expansion of their programs, adding walls or taking down walls. We've done some kitchen upgrades for some of the locations that we have, YFS and Cornerstone, trying to bring them up to standards. They've been very old equipment that doesn't meet code. So electrical and plumbing issues, we've done a lot of those in roofs, furnaces. We not only do those for public facilities, but also for owner-occupied homes for our very low and low-income people. We provide rehab programs for them.
Richie is going towards his button. Please come back, Barb. I almost slapped his wrist, but I let him do it, so.
Barbara, I want to thank you very much for doing this CDBG program. And I understand you're retiring very soon.
There's a vicious rumor to that effect. Yes. With luck, the 25th of January.
Okay. Thank you for all the years of service that you've done for that. So if I don't get a chance to tell you later on, I want to take the opportunity right now. And especially taking all the time that you spent with me educating on the process and how it works. I found out during the process of understanding how this program works, or what the initials stood for, the easiest way I try to remind people that there was a music group out there called the Bee Gees, and they made CDs. So that was the easiest way to remember a CDBG program. So it's somewhat helpful for people to understand what that's about. And then also helping out the underprivileged within our community. It's not that great deal of amount of money, but you've been able to make that resource go as far as it's possible as you can, and doing an excellent job at that. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
One other comment, if I may, Ms. Garcia, is that lately here we haven't seen any of these time frame crunches that we've been running across in the recent past. So thank you for trying to address those issues, because it seems like when recently we were running up to the time limit and the time frames, and it was becoming well, in my mind, it was a serious issue. So otherwise we could potentially be losing those funds. So I thank you for getting that addressed.
Unfortunately, we're still under that time crunch.
Yes, I understand.
As of today, we still don't have our 2018 money in our account to spend, and that spend down ratio is January 31st. So I really only have one more council meeting to get draws to you guys, which we will be very hard pressed to do. So you will probably hear us having a problem with that this next year.
But we want to make sure it's not because of what we are doing, it's what's happening on the federal level. Yes.
No, we're ready, but they have not put the money in our account yet, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I yield.
And I think that the rest of us echo those sentiments, so thank you, Barb.
All right. Last but not least, Matt Ozark with Code Enforcement. I don't have any fancy pictures, but in 2018 here so far, I see 1,400 plus cases that we've made. About half of those have been grass and weed violations, and then a good chunk of sidewalk issues with snow and ice. So as we're going forward here, obviously with the season change, our focus now will be the snow and ice on the sidewalks. And our main concern with those will be the downtown sidewalks, the high foot traffic, and the neighborhoods with schools in them. So that's all I have.
Well, I believe code enforcement is one of our most important efforts that we do in the city, so, and it can't be fun or easy, so thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Well, that's pretty much it, Council. I just wanted to close our presentation up by saying I feel like we have a very good staff in community development. There's a lot of expertise and knowledge and experience that backs up the people that you've seen and the others that you haven't seen here today that assist or work with these good folks. as in the case with Matt, and I think with all of them, you normally don't see them or hear anything about their program until someone's complaining, but I think that complaint shows that we're doing our job. So I think we've got some good work that we're doing, and you will continue to hear more about all of these things that we talked about today.
Well, we appreciate your work, Ken, and of course, this presentation has been really enlightening for all of us. And I guess I need a motion to acknowledge.
So moved. Motion isn't required, but...
We're going to do that anyway.
But you can.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion to acknowledge and a second by Modrick. All in favor?
Aye.
The report is acknowledged and need to adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Roberts.
Next.
Second by Nordstrom. And we are adjourned.
Very good.
Motion by Roberts, second by Roberts.